Inspired Mama podcast, where real moms have real conversations about real life. I'm your host, Kayla.
And I'm your host, Kenya.
Welcome to another episode, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into Kenya's upbringing, some of the obstacles that she has overcome, and how she's used her mindset to help her to navigate through life's challenges. And that's what we're here for, right? We're here to encourage, uplift, and motivate. So, Kenya, we're so excited to hear from you. Let's jump in. Tell us about your upbringing, your childhood. Where did you grow up, and what did that look like?
Okay, yes, thank you. I grew up in Washington State. I grew up with my four older brothers and my mom. My mom and dad were married but separated. Um, and my dad did pass away when I was 11. So we didn't grow up in a way that was like very family oriented. We didn't grow up saying I love you. We didn't grow up with hugs and kisses. We kind of really just, in my opinion, just kind of existed. Like I wasn't super close to my brothers. I wasn't super close to like my mom and my dad. Yeah, we kind of just grew up in that type of way.
So, yeah, it sounds like my first thoughts are the passing of your dad. That's really significant and almost kind of crazy how we were the same age when we both lost our fathers. And that's hard. I mean, losing a loved one is hard. Losing a parent is even harder. And losing a parent as a child, right? Like that's a whole new ball game as well. And I'm curious to know, how did you navigate the passing of your dad? I understand you're saying there wasn't a lot of affection, right? And I understand too, like, yeah, being the only girl, how that also plays a part in healing. How did healing look like for you all?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, as an only girl, just to touch on that, I wasn't really close to my brothers. I was the annoying little sister. They didn't really want much to do with me. And in regards to like emotions and feelings, we didn't really talk about how we felt. We didn't talk about our feelings. So when my dad did pass, we didn't really sit down as a family and like navigate our feelings and kind of grieve, honestly. It was kind of like it happened, and then I remember it was like 2 or 3 days before I started 6th grade. I went to 6th grade, I went to school, and we all just kind of continued to live our life. My mom continued to work to support all of us, and my brothers continued doing whatever they were doing, and it was just kind of like we kept going. We didn't really grieve and feel. And I think that, like, affected me maybe subconsciously, like, definitely I wasn't aware of what was going on, but I will say that I didn't grow up with a strong relationship with my dad. I remember there was a time I didn't even grow up calling him dad. It felt so weird, it felt so unnatural, so when I would talk to him, I'd just be like, "Hey, can I don't know, have
Yeah,
chips or can I have whatever it was," and we didn't grow up, like, with, like, that, father-daughter relationship, and that obviously very much affected me in my adulthood now looking back, but in the moment, I would say that it was kind of just not addressed. It was just it happened and life went on essentially.
yeah, that's sounds so difficult to just like have to hold all of that in. And being a child, you don't really know how to even articulate it. And it's something that's so foreign going through it that I'm sure it's like you don't even know that you need that help, right? Kind of
Right.
getting through that grieving. I do have a question. So you said that there was a time that you didn't even call him dad. Was were him and your mom together through your entire childhood up until he passed?
So, no, so they were together from probably birth to probably about 3. They were separated probably from, like, I don't know, 3 to 8, and then I remember my mom invited my dad to come back and live with us probably about 8. So from 8 to 11, he lived with us, before he passed away, and he did pass away in our house, and, I remember he even though when they were together, it was kind of like he wasn't, like, the provider, he wasn't, the head of the house. My mom was still taking care of everything, paying all the bills. Like I mentioned, he was an alcoholic, so he would go between drinking 3 months, working 3 months, drinking 3 months, working 3 months, and it was this pattern. So I guess that kind of paints like a bigger picture to maybe why our relationship wasn't that daughter-father relationship that you commonly see.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So that's a lot. That's a lot of change, right? Having your dad and then him leaving and then him coming back. And then I'm hearing also just the inconsistency of him being a provider or lack of him being a provider. So it sounds like a lot of that fell on your mom. I imagine that meant her working a lot. What kind of relationship did you and your mom have?
So, she worked at a standard job, 8 to 5 type of job, and I would say I wasn't too close to my mom in regards to, like, telling her all my deepest secrets or, like, really being open to her. I feel like now looking back as a mother, I could imagine the type of emotional baggage that she might have been going through that during that time, being a single mom, having 4 boys. So now looking back, I could see why she was emotionally unavailable for me in particular. So I would say our relationship wasn't super strong by any means. Like we kind of just lived together, you know? Like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really tough. I know for me, I really need that affection and that love, or need it, I guess, when I'm thinking back to like my early childhood too. So, how do you feel like that played out as you grew up, as you went into your teenhood, middle school, high school? What did that look like, and how do you think that affected you? Not just your mom, but just in general, some of the struggles that you face in your at home life.
I think let's see, loneliness was huge in my time in middle school and high school. I think fear of abandonment, I faced that. Um Yeah, I would say loneliness and fear of abandonment probably. I had friends, but I wasn't super social. Like, I would do things, but I was really, really focused on academics in middle school and high school, made sure I got good grades. I was very much a teacher's pet. I I really, I think, used school as my coping mechanism slash distraction. So I would just focus on school, do my homework, come home, get good grades. In regards to socially, though, I definitely would say I started drinking probably like ninth grade. Not heavily, but definitely like on the weekends for fun.
I hear what you're saying. And I think for me, the part that I relate to, and I'm sure maybe other moms can relate to too, was when you said when you became a mom, right? Like, think your mindset and your kind of outlook. Wow, I really feel like I was missing out on that now that I have my child now. So I definitely hear what you're saying, right? And we'll get into that. That's a whole nother topic. But I love how you said that. I think that's something that we can all relate to. So just to kind of stay on topic here, you started drinking. What did that look like? How did that play out in the rest of your high school career and even after high school?
Yeah, so, I would drink, only on the weekends, definitely still went to class, didn't skip school, anything crazy like that. And I would say probably about 10th grade. Me and my brother were 2 years apart, so we were in high school together. He would hear that I was drinking, and he was at a time in his life where he was, like, going to church very consistently, really into God at that time in his life, so he would invite me to go, but I would never go. And then there was this one Saturday night, he invited me to a youth group, and I was, "Okay, I'm not doing anything, sure, like, I'll go." So I ended up going with him to this church youth group night, and when I say God completely changed my life, that night, it was incredible. I felt like my eyes were open to this new spiritual world.
Yeah,
It's kind of hard to describe. We were worshiping and we were pr praising essentially, but we didn't grow just a disclaimer, we didn't grow up in the church, we didn't grow
right.
up knowing God, like, that's not what, like, our upbringing was, so this was about 10th grade, I think summer going into 11th grade. So anyways, that night I left and my whole life was changed. So I got a Bible that night, I started reading the Bible, stopped hanging out, I didn't go do anything. I didn't go to football games. I didn't do anything. I just went to church and I read the Bible and I prayed. And I think this was a pivotal part in my life, you know. I think it was a really good foundation that set me up to where I am today. Like, God's favor in my life is ridiculous. Like, I'm so grateful for it, and I feel like the time that I spent from 11th grade probably until I was about 21, I was church, God, Bible, very much sold out on God.
I love that you had that conviction at an early age. 10th grade is pretty early, and I love that for you, and I truly know and believe that that is like part of your plan and part of what God had for you and your journey. So I love that. I love that. So what did that look like? So you were very involved in church. Did you feel like it helped you? And what did that look like as far as healing?
So I was very involved in church, and I feel like in regards to healing, I don't know if healed was what I would say it was. Now, this is a tough one because I don't think I was healed.
Okay.
I don't think my healing came until I went to therapy, but I don't wanna say it was a distraction, but it definitely kept me busy. It was going through the motions and doing what I was supposed to do to be a good Christian, because one thing about my mind is if it makes sense, then I'm gonna do it. So, okay, I learned about God this night and I'm like, "Okay, I need to follow God. There's no other option." And that's what I did. And I feel like it was more of going through the motions during that time, even though it was going through the motions, obviously it was doing something for me,
Right.
and it was good. It was keeping me out of trouble, you
That's what I
know?
was just gonna say. It sounds
Yeah,
like the purpose of it was to keep you grounded and
right.
on the right path, because we all know, right? Like, high school's a crazy time. You can either go this route, follow that crowd, or you can go down that route and follow a crowd that's going to bring better to your future, right? Not necessarily the crowd, but just that direction.
Right,
Um,
absolutely.
so that sounds like that's what the purpose of that was. And I love that. I love that you got that early on. And it kind of helped to keep you on a track that was not meant for destruction based on your upbringing. So,
Absolutely. Yes,
yeah,
exactly. So I feel like the way I grew up, I was destined to have a certain outcome.
the odds were against you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Odds
Yeah.
were against me, but I do feel like this time in my life, God kind of just was like, "No, she's mine. No,
Yeah.
I'm gonna use her for whatever my purpose is." The mindset shift that I had, just do better, be better
To be
is
better than your environment. You were not going to allow that to define who you were to become.
yes, my circumstances didn't define my outcome.
There you go. That's
Yeah,
it. That's what I was looking for.
yes, yes,
Okay,
you
I
got it.
love that. Okay, so just to kind of, bring us back to motherhood, what were your um, goals or your thoughts on becoming a mom?
Oh, so I didn't want anything to do with becoming a mom. I didn't want kids. You know, I felt like I didn't wanna bring kids into this messed up world, not realizing that I have the ability to change the reality of the world that they live in. So I didn't want kids.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So Okay, so you didn't want kids, very different from me, girl. I was ready to have my family and my kids. So I love that. I think, yeah, for sure. There's two different kinds of people when it comes to that. So obviously that changed. What did your love life look like? Did you have boyfriends in school? Was Tyler your first boyfriend? Paint that picture for us.
Great question. I didn't have a love life, I would say. So, didn't have boyfriends. I got my first boyfriend when I was about to graduate high school, so 18.
Okay.
And that was the time when I was super saved, like, super into God, so I didn't even here, let me tell y'all about this. Okay, so
Tell us, girl. We want to know.
so I was working at Applebee's, and this guy comes in, And he's like, "Are you married?" As soon as anybody would say I had a boyfriend, I'd be like, "Yep, I have a boyfriend." Like, "No, I'm taken." Like, "No, I don't wanna talk to you." And he came in here and hit me with, "Are you married?" And I'm
Right?
like, "No." And then he actually explained this to me, it's actually a funny story. He was like, I asked if you were married because if you were married, you'd be like, "Yeah, I'm married." But if you weren't, you'd be like, "No, I'm not married, but I have a boyfriend." But that question threw me off guard, so I didn't also follow up with, "But I have a boyfriend," because I didn't. So he's like, "Okay." Anyways, he ended up getting my number. We ended up going to prom together. 8 months later, he, um, asked me to marry him.
Wow.
Right, right. And
Was he
yeah,
older than you?
just like a year and a half maybe.
Okay. So
Yeah,
he had already graduated high school.
yes, but just
He
to paint a little bit of picture of, like,
okay.
maybe why. So, like I said, I was in this phase of my life where I was really into God. Nothing was taking me from God, including this boy. So, obviously, a principle in the Bible is no sex before marriage, and that was one of my biggest battles with him is because, obviously, I'm a beautiful girl, and he obviously wanted to do that with me.
Mhm.
And me being young, not knowing myself, not having boundaries would fall into it. Every time I'd feel so guilty. And I would communicate to him, I'm like, "No, I wanna wait until marriage." And he would be totally on board for the most part. So we'd fall short, essentially.
Yeah.
So I honestly think maybe that's why the engagement came so quickly after we met. But I just knew that he wasn't the one for me. There's just different things that I don't know, I just didn't feel like it was him. He was overly emotional, like, kind of controlling. I was just about to be a freshman in college, and he kind of felt insecure in that in regards to me talking to other guys, and I'm like, "I'm not worried about guys at all. I'm worried about
Yeah.
so there was just like a little there was just some types of, hiccups that we experienced, and I made a
Yeah.
plan. I was like, "Okay," so he asked me to marry him in December, and I just knew that this was not gonna work out, so I waited until my first year in college to break up with him, so I could have the mental capacity to not have to worry about him, and
So
school at the
he
same
asked
time.
you to marry him in December, and
Right.
even though you knew you didn't wanna be with him, you still said yes?
Yes, because I was insecure, young, stupid, list goes on. Yes, exactly. Knowing dang well I did not want to.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so even after you said yes, you kind of started an exit plan. You know you were gonna break up with him?
Yes.
You did. That's so crazy
Yes.
how you were able to wait and kind of plan it out. But that shows, I feel like maturity because I don't
I mean,
know.
maybe. I could see how it could be maturity, but I also could see how it could be a lack of maturity because, girl, if you know what you want, break up with him.
True.
But I didn't because I didn't have the maturity to do it. Like, I didn't have the emotional capacity to have to deal with the emotional drainage that he brought me, the emotional drainage that a breakup brings, and still keep up with my grades.
Yeah.
So I didn't have the emotional capacity to handle all of that, so I chose to wait until I didn't have to deal with school, and I could just focus on breaking up with him for a whole 3 months out of
Summer. Summer.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, so interesting. Okay, so you eventually broke up with him. And how was that? Were you okay?
Oh, yeah, I mean
Confident in your decision by that point?
oh, yeah, I was good. By the time my sophomore year in college hit, I was good.
Okay.
It was
Okay.
definitely I'm
So
not gonna sit here and say, like, I'm, like, super tough or whatever. I'm definitely an emotional person, but overall, I was absolutely fine.
okay, yeah, for that being your first relationship too, it sounds like golly. I remember my first relationship. I was devastated. Okay, so then what happened after that? Were you single? Did you get another boyfriend? What happened?
Good question. So, also really quick, uh, just to say this, I didn't want anything to do with guys, which is probably why it was so easy for me. I'm like, "Okay,"
That's
I didn't want a husband, I didn't want nothing like that. And honestly, probably because I didn't see it growing up. I didn't have
yeah.
the I don't know, whatever it takes to be in a relationship. It takes a lot, and I didn't have it. Um, let's see. We broke up. I was single for probably about 2.5 years before I met Tyler. And in between him and Tyler, I did not have another boyfriend. I was living
Wow.
my
So
best.
you were single.
Yes.
Okay. And tell us about that. How did you meet Tyler?
Yes. Well, let me tell you about my, 2.5 years of living my best life.
Okay. That's fair.
So, I will say when I hit 21, I definitely took a step back from God. I was into college, really busy. I was working on the weekends, focusing on my studies, and I was 21 now, so I would go out, I would drink, of course, have guys talking to me, stuff like that. So it was a new type of environment and experience for me that I've never experienced before because in high school, I didn't really do the partying, I didn't do all of that, so during this 2.5 years of being single, I definitely went out more, and I had a new type of exposure to boys that brought me a new type of confidence. I didn't have self-esteem. I did not think that I was pretty at all, like, growing up. But this stage in my life, I was like, "Dang, they're after me," you know? So my confidence definitely, was, like, uplifted during that 2.5
Yeah.
years of singleness. And then, yeah, 2.5 years later, I met Tyler, I met my husband, but do you want me to tell that story?
Yeah. I want to know how you met him. Of course.
Okay, so I was a senior in college by now. I was still working at Applebee's, I was a server, um, and I took a step away from God, but I still had the guilt of
Mm.
not doing the right thing by God in this time in my life. So, there's this time in my life I was like, "Okay, I'm done with boys, I'm done drinking, I'm done going out," and then boom, here comes Tyler. So he comes in, and at this time that he comes into Applebee's, I'm not interested in talking to guys. I'm, like, focusing on, God again. I'm trying to focus back on what I'm gonna do when I graduate, stuff like that. I wasn't really focusing on boys, but anyways, he comes in with his friend. Anytime a good-looking man would come in, they'd be like, "Kenya, check him out," and I saw him, and I'm like, "No, it's okay, like, I'm not trying to talk to anybody right now."
You're talking about
Clearly
your coworkers would like
yeah.
try to like hook you up with any good looking man that would come in?
They're just like, "Kenny, you should get his number." And I'm like, "No, I don't
Not
need
them
it."
soliciting you.
Solicited me, girl. I'm like, "I'm good, I'm good." So anyways, we miraculously ended up, sitting at 2 tables that were next to each other. He was with his friend, and we started talking, and he left his number, and when I say I never text a guy first, I sat there and I got off of work and texted Tyler.
Did you? Why? What do you think made him different? What do you think that was?
I don't know. I don't know. I really
What was
don't.
his vibe? Like, how did he come at you? Was he just like
Um,
smooth with it? Was he super in your face?
so I will say the one thing that definitely stood out to me was the way he dressed. He was dressed very well. You know, the Chelsea boots, the what's that circle hat called? F-
Not the one, girl.
Fedora.
Fedora? He's
Fedora,
wearing a
yes.
fedora?
Oh, yes, girl, yes.
I love
He
that.
like, the way he was dressed, he probably had, like, a nice button-up shirt on, so he,
Tyler
like
is sharp. I'll
yeah.
say that.
Yes. So
I
I
love
guess one thing that really attracted me is that he looked like a man, he
mm,
looked like a grown man.
bro.
He's not on little boy,
Yeah, right? Like
you
the
know?
baggy jeans, baggy
Right.
shirt, but yeah, okay,
Right,
okay.
right, right, right. So I was like,
Wow.
"Okay." So I would say that was probably what definitely had me texting him is because he looked like a man.
Wow, okay. Way to go, Tyler.
If you're listening, make sure you go out looking like a man.
Literally, right? Okay, so you texted him first, which is abnormal for you. Look at God. Look at
Look
God
at
leading
God.
you to your husband, girl.
Yes, won't he
Love
do
that.
it?
Right? Okay, so what else? What happened after that? How fast did the relationship take off?
Great question, but really quick, another way that God worked it out is Tyler's side of the story is he was not supposed to be at Applebee's that night. He hated Applebee's. Like, Applebee's was not his place, but his friend wanted to go. He'll tell the story one day.
Oh my
So they
God.
ended up at Applebee's that night, and when I say they were there for hours, I didn't get off until probably 12:30, and they were there that whole time. God was definitely working it out and putting my husband in front of my face.
Right? There you go. I love that. I love that. Okay, so to answer the question, I had asked like what happened after that? How
Yeah.
fast did the relationship take off?
So We met probably mid-October. We hung out for the first time, um, uh, the day before Halloween. We went to a Halloween party, started dating in December,
Okay. So wait,
graduated in
you hung out at Halloween. Did y'all continue to see each other, like just casual dates and like throughout November?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah,
And
we
then
would see.
December, he asked you to be his girlfriend.
Yes, he did.
So then what happened after you became boyfriend and girlfriend?
After we became boyfriend and girlfriend, I was a senior in college, he was still active duty military, so we would still see each other, we'd always be together, doing different things. I graduated in May, we planned a vacation, we went down to Florida, we went to Daytona Beach, we went to Orlando, just had a really, really good time. So I got pregnant on this vacation.
What month was this? Because you became official in December.
December, found out I was pregnant in July, and then the vacation was, like, end of June.
Okay, got it.
Yep. So, yeah, I got pregnant.
Wow. Oh
Yes.
my gosh. So it was a surprise pregnancy. And how did that feel, especially knowing that you weren't, looking to be a mom, especially so soon?
Right. So, I was shocked, actually. I was very surprised, because I didn't take my birth control for literally, like, a month,
Mm.
and then I was pregnant, like, within 1 month, so God was like, "Let me get her. Let me get that baby in her," like, as soon as I slipped up, like, God was like, "Here's a baby." Um,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, so I got pregnant, and how did I feel? I was scared, I was very uncertain, like, we weren't married, I was like, "What's gonna happen?" So a lot of uncertainty, definitely feelings of being scared. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Was it always this is it? This is the cards that we're dealt with and we're gonna roll with it? Was that always the mindset after you found out y'all were pregnant?
Yeah, pretty much, yes. It wasn't, like, super smooth, but I think overall it was like, "Okay, we're gonna make it work." We ended up getting married in November, and then Camden was born in March. Um, yeah, so we even the way we got married was, like, super transactional,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, kind of happens like that sometimes, especially with
yeah.
military. I get it, girl. Awesome. That's exciting. I feel like so much so quick. So, what did that look like after you had Cam? How did your relationship change, or what did that look like for you guys?
So I guess just speaking personally for me, it was hard adjusting to motherhood. One thing that I absolutely was sure of that I wanted Camden to experience the exact opposite childhood that I experienced. And I knew like logically that meant hugs, that meant kisses, that meant me saying I love you. And when I say it was challenging to navigate being able to show that affection to a baby or a person because I didn't grow up with it, so it was definitely a learning curve for me. I definitely spent a lot of time reading articles. How do I be the best mom? How do I raise a mentally strong kid? I would read about it, and at a very young age, I was very helicopter mom. I was very structured mom, like, I had a routine. I was like, "Okay, it's nap time. Okay, he can't eat this." I don't think he drank juice until he was about 2.
Wow.
Emery's a different story. That's a whole another topic all by itself. But yeah, I was very protective. I was very like, everything has to go perfect. I have to make his world perfect. I didn't want him to feel any type of hurt, trauma, anything. So
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like you wanted it to be as controlled as possible. That's stressful. How did that affect you in terms of like mentally? And I know the reason I'm asking is because it sounds draining, and that's a lot to try to take on. How did that unfold for you?
that's a great question. So in the moment, I did not know this. So that's just putting that out there. But what I know now and looking back, it affected me because I put so much time and effort into making sure Camden's world was perfect. I essentially neglected myself. I didn't take care of myself, like, I didn't my whole life was the baby, so I didn't do self-care, I didn't do self-love, I didn't work on me, I didn't fill up my own cup, which is so important in motherhood, is being able to fill up my own cup, and I think one thing where it hurt our marriage is I expected Tyler to have these super controlled, super perfection type of mentality when it came to raising Camden, and when he didn't, it would make me upset. Okay, like, you need to do this. I would expect Tyler to do things the way I wanted them to based off of the trauma I experienced when I was a kid, but that wasn't his truth, that wasn't his reality, so he didn't see why I was so extreme with it, and in that, it was a lot for me because I was overly stressed without even realizing I was stressed. In the moment, I was just, like, doing, 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 getting things done, but definitely, like, stress on my body, definitely agitation, resentment towards Tyler. There's just so many things that I had to overcome and deal with during that time.
Wow, that's so powerful. I feel like it's so easy, especially as a mom, regardless of the type of person you are, even if you're not the type of person that is naturally controlling, when it comes to being a mom, it's so easy for that to kind of take over, and really it's added pressure that we put on ourselves, and it's so subconsciously. So I can appreciate that for sure, and thank you for sharing that, because I know that that's something that I'm sure a lot of moms struggle with, is this need to be perfect and have this perfect world for our kids. And I want to know, you say that that did kind of put a strain on your relationship, especially a relationship that's so new, right? And navigating a new marriage, a new baby, being a mom. How did you work that out? And at what point and how did it come to the point of realization that, okay, I need help? I need to redirect this energy.
I would definitely obviously say therapy. Therapy helped significantly. How that came about is Tyler recommending it to me. He would say, "You need therapy," but of course, when anybody tells you to do something, you ain't gonna do it until you're
Right.
ready. "There's nothing wrong with me. You just need to do this, you're this." Not realizing, that he's right. I did. I needed
Intentions
therapy. I
are
needed an
pure.
outlet. Yeah, and like I said, I didn't grow up having really strong friendships. I didn't have a good relationship with my mom. Like, I had nobody to talk to, so it would just be me and Tyler, and I would just dump all of this on him, and he would tell me, "You need to go see a therapist." So fast forward, I went to go see a therapist, and it helped me tremendously. It helped me with control, recognizing some trauma that I had built up, and the reason why you want this perfect life for your baby is because you're trying to do the exact opposite. You need to recognize that's trauma, and it doesn't have to be that deep. It doesn't have to be that serious. Hugs and kisses and the affirmations that you give your child is enough. You don't have to do all this extra and ordinary and sit there and type out schedules when you drop off a baby. There was even a point in time where we didn't even do dates, and that obviously affected our new relationship and our new marriage because I was like, "My baby ain't going nowhere.
Yes.
We're gonna stay home."
Real quick, I laughed when you just said that, because I don't know if you remember a time that we babysat Cam for you guys. He had to have been a year and a half, maybe, if that. And you guys dropped him off, and in his little backpack, Tyler was like, "There's a note in the front of the backpack for you. Bye." Like, he left. And I remember unfolding this little piece of notebook paper. And when I tell you guys, it was, I mean, point A, point B, highlight, pink highlight, yellow highlight. Like, it was legit. It was an entire manual of how we should take care of him. So I know what you mean. That was why I was laughing when you said that, because
No.
that's a lot. And I'm so happy that you came to that realization. I'm so grateful that Tyler was able to convey that to you in a way that you were receptive to it, because that's tough. That's not something that's an easy message to give to somebody. But when you love somebody, that's what you do. And thank God that Tyler was able to kind of help you realize that in those moments when we can't always see everything so clearly.
Yes, absolutely, yes, I think he played a huge role in my personal growth, my spiritual growth, definitely,
Oh, I
definitely.
love that. Well, take that as it is for anybody out there who can grow from that, or maybe if you've never even thought of therapy before. I hope that that's something that resonates with somebody. Um, What happened next? At this point, you had sought therapy. It had helped you through some of those hard times. At this point, Cam is almost two. What unfolded after that?
Yeah, really good question. Right before Camden turned 2, we ended up selling our house and moving to Arizona. We lived there for about 2 years, but there was, like, a gap for the time that we were in Arizona where Tyler and I actually lived separate, so he ended up moving to Georgia before me. I started a master's program, so we lived separate for about 7 months. So that was a self-healing opportunity for me. I learned a lot during that time about myself. And yeah.
That's a big deal. That was planned. Um, in order to better your future, right? It sounds like he moved to Georgia before you.
Right, yep.
Okay, okay. Let me back up here. So you guys met in Washington. You lived there up until Cam was almost two. Then you relocated to Arizona. Why?
So Tyler's job. So he had opportunity to either work in Arizona or Atlanta. He applied for both and he ended up getting the Arizona position. And
Okay.
then the person that got hired in Atlanta at that same time ended up getting fired. So Tyler transferred over to the Georgia location about a year and a half into living in Arizona.
Wow, that's a lot of moving is hard, but moving states, especially with a new marriage, a new baby, 2 years old is still pretty new. Okay, so you guys moved to Arizona. You were there for a year and a half. Then you made the decision. Okay, Tyler got this new job in Atlanta. He's gonna go first. That is a huge sacrifice that you guys made to be apart for 7 months in order to better yourself for success. How did that affect you guys, and what did you do to overcome that?
It was definitely a couple of hard conversations that we had to have to decide what we were going to do. So I already applied to my master's program. I already got accepted. I was already set up to start my program. So it was either I don't start, I wait 1 full year and start out of school in Georgia. We cancel going to Atlanta at all. So we just stay in Arizona and like live the rest of our life in Arizona because obviously the Atlanta position was going to fill up. Or Tyler goes and I stay, finish my master's program. So it was definitely a challenging situation. We definitely weighed out the pros and cons of all of those scenarios, and essentially we came to the conclusion that this temporary sacrifice will set us up for future success. And that's what we went through. Um, he left like November. My program started in August. So November till I got here in May, we were separate. Um, Definitely had a therapist during that time just to help me navigate through loneliness. Once again, I'm facing that feelings of abandonment. Even though my husband didn't abandon me, I was still lonely, I still had both of the kids in Arizona with me at that time, but it was something we agreed on, so it wasn't foreign. It was just feelings that I really had to work through and navigate, and it was a huge opportunity for me to grow and learn a lot about myself. So I don't regret it at all. Like that time in my life was probably the time that I learned the most about myself.
That is awesome. I think that's amazing that you guys were able to make that decision for the better of your family. And just to kind of in this episode, and we'll definitely have so much more time to catch up. I want to know how you used your mindset to help you overcome a lot of these obstacles that you've faced. What did that look like in getting your mind prepared in order to make all of this happen?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think mindset is huge, and I think I've always had this type of awareness about mindset. My favorite saying was change your mind, change your life. And if you just focus on the good, focus on the future success that it's going to bring, focus on the positive that any situation is going to bring, it'll really help you to be encouraged to keep going. These feelings of uncomfortability are temporary. Just not focusing on that. Don't focus on being uncomfortable. Don't focus on the hurt. Just focus on like the bigger picture. Focus on future.
Change your mind, change your life. That is So good. Such a great takeaway. Thank you for sharing that with us. Any last words, anything that you'd like to say to kind of send off our mamas on their way?
Yeah, so I would say, just keep doing your best, take one day at a time. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to reach the best version of yourself. Just take one day at a time, take it slow, really focus on what you need as a person. Don't compare yourself. I am 7 years in the making. It does not happen overnight. So take your time, enjoy the journey. Really, even this podcast journey, I'm learning so much about myself, and I'm not putting too much pressure on myself, but really like taking the opportunities to learn and grow and just taking one day at a time, honestly.
I love that. Thank you so much, Kenya, for being vulnerable and sharing your testimony, your experience with us. Again, our mission here is to help mamas out there who may be going through something similar, who might just need a little word of encouragement or inspiration. That's really the mission behind this. So thank you for contributing to that, being so passionate and on board. I love that we get to share this together. We look forward to sharing more. I know that you kind of gave us a little glimpse, but as we continue to record, you'll hear how we have navigated through the difference between Tyler and Kenya's relationship and mine and Fuller's relationship. So that is in a future episode. Can't wait to share that with you guys. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys next time.
Yes. Don't forget to like this video, share it with somebody that it might help, and subscribe to our channel and turn on your notification bell so you could be notified when a new episode drops.
Love that. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Bye.